Yeah, well, I'm Gunnar Ketu. Hello, and I'm a being on this universe, hanging in space, the middle of rocks and stars and consciousness, or who knows what. And I am what the Norwegian author Jostein Gaarder says: the universe becoming aware of itself. I'm also a human being and the father of a daughter, a wonderful daughter of 13. And I'm also ordained Buddhist in Triratna Buddhist order as and the chairman of the Oslo Buddhistsenter. I'm trained as a Gestalt therapist and work partly as a therapist and as a teacher for social workers. And finally, I'm completing a PhD about mindfulness and sustainability. And so it is exciting to be here, like united by this fundamental belief that all people, all living things on the earth are sacred. And the fact that the world needs compassionate, just response to COVID-19 and to the climate change and the movements that we're going to bring with it, and that people of faith need to lead the way to establish new and better ways of being on this earth. And a global multi-faith coalition has been or is establishing at the moment, started as a Green Faith International and spans currently 14 countries. And we are hosting this Sacred People, Sacred Earth marking, which is, I believe, one of the biggest multi-faith days dedicated to climate action. And yeah, so I'm a bit overwhelmed by just thinking about this, and so it's good to root myself here. I'm sitting in this house or a cabin in Ås in Norway and being snowed in. And yeah, so just looking out the window and the snow, it helps me just to ground myself on this earth. And so what I've invited you to do with me today is first to have I'll share some thoughts about how to connect with the globe to change our being. Then we'll do a contemplation about that, and I'll explore more about what that might mean. And then we'll go out and do it. And so I'll say a bit more about that later. And also I invite you immediately after this workshop to go out and do something, take a photo and meet again at 5 o'clock. So we have to kind of review how that went. Yes, and then there'll be another workshop at 6 o'clock called Living Bridges. But first, I'd just like to take a couple of minutes just to quietening our mind and our body. So just sitting sitting quiet, and then I'll lead into a kind of a visualization. So I like to do this with my eyes closed, and you could close your eyes or look at me or look at something beautiful, perhaps if you're sitting at some beautiful spot. And so take a couple of deep in breaths and letting the breathing go. And then feeling your feet on the ground, through the floor or whatever you're sitting on. And feeling your buttocks, your legs, against whatever you are sitting on. Maybe you're sitting on the chair, so your back rests against the chair back. Just letting go into that support from the earth. Just relax into that being here now. Noticing your stomach and your chest. And how you're feeling now? And noticing also your hands and your arms, your shoulders, and your head, your face. Let your face become soft. And now recall a wonderful experience that you've had in nature somewhere. It might be quite recently or some time ago. And try to imagine the space you were in that time. What does it look like? Were there trees there? Perhaps some water or the ocean? Perhaps it was up in the mountains with wonderful rocks lying all about. Maybe it was cold and snowy or hot and lush. So just noticing what is in your immediate surroundings. Noticing the particulars of the plants and the nature there where you imagine to be. And notice how it feels like being there in your mind. Perhaps you want to allow yourself to smile if that's natural. And whilst you're sitting there, feeling however you're feeling, you notice that a plastic bag comes flying in. While sitting there are other rubbish as well, just being brought in by the wind. You notice a small trickle of something looking like oil running across the land. And suddenly you hear a car arriving and people just throwing out bags of litter and an old worn out chair just on the land, and then they drive off. You notice the leaves starting to drop off, and the grass or whatever living plants wilting, dying. Just noticing what is happening in you right now, in your heart and your stomach, how you're feeling. Just holding this feeling with acceptance. And then you notice some people are coming into the land and they're carrying the chair away. Another car arriving, and they're starting to clean up the rubbish that others have left. More people are coming along, and they start soaking up the oil spills, cleaning up the rubbish. Some of them are your friends. They start tilling the earth, sowing new seeds. And you notice some birds are returning, flying about, and perhaps some small animals looking curiously at you people cleaning up the place. And after a while, when you clean up all you can clean up, you sit down in a circle, just look at each other and smile. And notice how you're feeling right now. And now bring your mind back to where you're sitting right now, noticing your body, the surroundings where you are, and let go of the imagining of that visualization. Let go of that favorite place, your friends and strangers helping to clean it up. And when you're ready, just open your eyes. So when I learned this way of meditating, or in a sense, this way of traveling, I felt so free. I can go anywhere I want, and I can experiment with the future. It's a bit like some of you might have seen the film Doctor Strange, and when he was fighting with forces of chaos, he strapped on a time device on his hand, and with that device he could go into the future, and he could see possible courses of actions he was about to do. And so then he could go back into the present and change his actions depending on what the likely outcome would be. And so this kind of mindfulness exercise or meditation, I find helps me to do that, to go into the future, and really to imagine and strengthen how that future can be, and see that I actually have a choice. And I think this way of working on the mind can be a powerful tool in the transition to more sustainable lives. And we need to change our being in the world, how we are, act, and so forth, what we do. And we also need to change our being in ourselves and our inner world, how we feel, think, and imagine. And of course, they are interconnected, like the oxygen and carbon dioxide that we breathe all the time. This mouth is just an arbitrary door between the outer and the inner world where oxygen and carbon dioxide live happily. Um, and so the title of this workshop is Deep Action. It reflects this, and I'm inspired by the deep ecology promoted in particular by Rachel Carlson and Arne Næss. And Rachel Carlson, who some of you might not have heard about, she was deeply involved in the life of the ocean. And Arne Næss cited her as his inspiration for the deep ecology. And Arne Næss, of course, he went on the inside and really looked at how can he really work on his inner attitudes to, to be sustainable. And he looked so deeply, and that looking deeply transformed his life. He turned down the thermostat of his home to 16 degrees initially because he didn't want to, make a footstep on the earth. And he left his work as university philosophy because he thought, well, that's not where the change happens. And then he went on to affect so many people elsewhere. And being ecology, that's exactly, I think, what we need to do. And I've been very inspired by encountering Timothy Morton, who's a philosopher, phenomenologist, activist, artist, who wrote the book called Being Ecological. And I really like that. It's like, I am ecology. That sounds really good. But when you start living it, it feels a bit weird. And Timothy Morton really draws this out because I think, am I really this nature? Like, am I this, like when I'm weeding these plants up at our cottage, or sometimes like I have to cut down a tree that's threatening to fall and break some of our houses. It's like, am I actually cutting myself? And of course, Timothy Morton brings out that genetically, I am much more similar to mosquitoes and ants, that I am different. Uh, and so he's really calling to us to really identify with this. But this can be a bit weird. It's like, am I a fish? Am I a salmon? And another friend, I call him friend, Martin Lee Müller, he wrote a wonderful book called Being Summoned, Being Human. And he dreams himself into a life of a salmon with gills and just gliding along a mountain stream, or at Akerselva at night, bathe in sunlight. And he weaves this story. It's just so rife with knowledge about salmon and the life of salmon, with that of the fisherman who is hunting for the salmon, or the mouse that is swimming across the lake that the salmon catches, or the person on the bank of the Akerselva who actually just watches the salmon, or the fishing industry which actually boxes these salmon up and in a sense, destroys some of the natural habitats. So it's just bringing all these stories together, and the effect is just bringing up, it's like, empathy with all of them, both the salmon, the fisherman, the owner of the fishing factory. And so it's kind of it brings out that the effect of, it's like, there are all these beautiful feelings about living in this nature that we visualized earlier, but there's also these terrible breaking down and the loss of ecosystem, and so it's just really to hold all of that. And it kind of it brings out the also the dilemmas. And I remember when I was out paddling with some friends in the Swedish archipelago, and we were sitting there having lunch, and then we saw a duck with its ducklings swimming along, and then we saw an otter, trying to catch the ducklings, and then some of us, started throwing small rocks at the otter. And then someone else said, well, what's that otter going to bring home to its babies then? And so suddenly this dilemma of this natural world just exploded up in us. And this can bring out panic. It's like when I really think about what is happening through the environment in some parts of the world, I get really distressed. And when I think about my daughter of 13 inheriting this globe and not quite knowing what she will grow up in, I could really feel the chest tightening. And this is where Timothy Morton suggests that we have some chocolate. So he wants to have some really special chocolate that can calm our fear and our anxiety. And of course, this is special chocolate. It doesn't remove or suppress the symptoms, and it's not addictive. And this chocolate, it comes in many forms. And to me, this chocolate, some of it is like going out into nature. Sometimes I just need to go out and sit by a creek, as I have these, when I moved back to Norway after 11 years in the UK, I found this little hill by Grefsenkollen where I could just sit, lean by a tree and look out over the city. And there I was amongst the trees. And it was just like, and I could relax. And even when I was living in industrial Manchester, I found this kind of river. It's like where it was polluted there, but there was living water there. And just going there, I could kind of relax. And my partner Anna works with animals, and bring kids who are really troubled in the world and let them have some chocolate with the horse or the goat or whatever it is. Or my friend Tina and Ulla being just absorbed in their artwork, or maybe you, Kai, making a trip in your rowing boat, and just like finding our ways to actually to relax. And I think Timothy Morton, he brings this point out in one of his other books called Dark Ecology, because really when we pay attention to both the state of the nature and of people, it can be overwhelming. So we need to find our pieces of chocolate and to open our heart. And so when you have your chocolate and you can hold this, and I really find David was recently telling me about this interview between Greta Thunberg and the Dalai Lama, and it just brings to mind the Dalai Lama's way of being in the world is just so light and playful. And I think it's the same way that Timothy Morton talks about just life and this ecological crisis, and he holds it just very lightly, and also makes me reminded of this ironic statement that Greta Thunberg, I think, said to the economic forum in Davos in 18, I think. It's like she's been warned not to talk about the crisis, the climate crisis, because it can create panic in people. And she said, "No, you don't have to worry about that, because we've been doing this for a long time. It doesn't do anything. People don't take it into account," as it were. But anyway, so when we can manage to relax and find our piece of chocolate, we can start to relate with a more open hand. And so we can activate altruism as an innate muscle. And so when you do this, like the exercise we did, you want to act. When you see violence or suffering, you want to act, and that feels good, and it's a healthy response. And it's important to really enjoy that as the first part of this visualization we did. And then when you see dying plants, when you see on television, all the forests burning or being chopped down or polluted or whatever, it just feels terrible, and you want to act. And when you can't act, that feels terrible. It is draining, and so I think it is important to also sometimes to switch off. And I remember this switch, the first time I became aware of it was the last time I was fishing. And I'd been there out in the boat, and I caught a fish and all excited, and I took it off the hook, and I thought, what now? And plenty of times, I just cracked the neck of the fish, and that was that. But then I hesitated, and I didn't manage to make myself just break its neck. And so the second best was just to hit it against the side of the boat, and that killed the fish. But it was so unpleasant that I decided, no, it's not worth it. And I think what I had done before that was to steel myself and just disconnect from, well, it's just a, and then it's done. Don't think about it. And I managed that all up until that point. And so I think that sometimes it is important to somehow disconnect and say, well, this actually needs to be done. It's like maybe you've driven into an elk or a deer or something, and it's lying there, bleeding, and it's just like it's dying, but it's not dead. And so actually to take your something heavy, a log or something, and just really kill it, I think it's better for the animal. And so it's kind of you're stealing myself for the discomfort, or it's actually reading about all the violence in the world that I can't do anything about, and actually learning to switch that off. And this is something that I teach some of the students I teach as social workers. Actually, so when they meet the overwhelming suffering of the world, what they can do with, they do, and what they can't do anything about, actually don't be so involved. And so I think this brings us back to this idea, Schumacher's idea of thinking act globally and acting locally. So it's actually not to confuse the two. And so we need to learn to do that switch. And some need to disconnect at times, have chocolates a bit more often because they're about to be burned out. And I remember animals rights activists I met at the Buddha Field Festival many years ago, very much in the process of burning out. And so I think he had some really good experience doing that Buddha Field Festival. So when I met him the following year, he had completely changed. He had changed his way of being and had switched off in very many good ways. And others need to connect, actually to turn off the desensitization, turning off the ideas as, well, actually it's not anything about me. Global warming or environmental crisis, that is something someone else does with. It's the um, animal liberation, or it's the Extinction Rebellion, or it's Greenpeace, or Untitled Buddhistsenter. They do something about it. I just recycle my plastic, and that's good enough. Well, maybe it isn't. These days, I think, so if you're in that category, I think to find ways to actually to reconnect. And mindfulness, meditation or contemplation is a very powerful tool, both in sensitizing and setting boundaries for your heart. And so it's like the mind's apothecary, or apotek in Norwegian. And in an apothecary, you have lots of remedies for different ailments. So if you are very kind of divided, and you, on one hand, you want luxuries, and like you want to fly on holidays to Bali and buy a lot of things, and on the other hand, you want to really be sustainable and live sustainably, well, do the mindfulness of breathing and make use of the breathing meditation to integrate and accept all these various parts that actually can come together into one. And but maybe you're angry. You are just angry with those polluting, and you're shameful about your own contribution to that, and you're fearful about the future. Well, in that case, you do the metta bhavana, or the meditation on loving kindness, and you just sit with your heart, and you train it to open up to the best in you, and your responses to the world, and you just let that flower. And you don't do it just to yourself, you do it to your friends. And you don't do it just to your friends, you do it to your potential friends, that all those people you don't know yet, but they could become your friends if you got to know them. And not only to those you don't know, but to those you dislike. Like a course participant said recently, she discovered that I can love my parents even though I don't like them. And this, to hold that, it's a key to dissolve so much polarization and animosity. So that's the second remedy. Well, if unless you are, maybe you are stuck in old outdated habits, like kicking, uh, just like just habits of consuming a lot, or you just working very hard, or whatever. Well, don't just do a practice of letting go. Maybe something called the six element practice, or you could do that same. I love doing that with the mindfulness of breathing, just focusing on letting go of the breathing. Just see how easy it is to let the out breath go. And just start imagining that with your own bad habits that you want to get rid of. Or maybe you're feeling depressed or small and insignificant, and I can't do anything in the world. Well, do a visualization like we just did, imagining yourself to be the Buddha, or maybe Arne Næss, or whoever your hero is. And just imagining that you are sitting in the inner council, maybe of um, Mother Teresa, or the Dalai Lama, or whoever your hero is, and just be part of that group, and you can be like them. So just grow in, as my teacher Sangharakshita said, you need to learn to unfold your secret wings, because you are much more than you think you are. I think Greta Thunberg is just a brilliant example of that. So well, maybe all of those four remedies, they're just a bit too much. You're just tired. It's just like there's all these things to consider and all that. Okay, so in that case, you just be. You just stop doing something and just sit there. Just sit there. Just take time being. So these are 5 remedies in this apothecary of the mind that mindfulness and meditation can actually help you to deal with. And so we have to learn both about ourselves and about the situation we are, to find out what remedy is relevant at a particular time. And when I do this meditation, I do it sometimes on the cushion, and I feel it's a bit like the gym, or I used to practice Aikido as a martial art. And so there's a dojo where I kind of exercise some of these qualities. But then I go out and practice off the cushion. like taking meditation into the world. And so you integrate your various aspects of your various relationship, work, love life, family, friends, politics, activism. So you integrate this into one whole, and you bring your loving kindness with you to people you meet, yourself in the mirror in the morning, your friend at the office, the stranger in your activist group or your political party, your enemy in the apartment blocks who always slam the door or kind of plays music too loud, or and you hold them with loving kindness, and then you let go. You let go of the things you did yesterday, and and then you open up to new possibilities. And then sometimes you just sit down and you drink in the pink clouds of the evening without doing anything, just being. So with this cure, we can cure the world. We can help cure the world. And like other cures, we don't stop living our lives just because we're taking a cure. Rather, with a cure, it helps us living more healthily. And it helps us access our deeper values. And it helps us to go beyond our deepest fears and unleash our deepest value, realizing that exactly that we're not who we think we are. We are really so much more. And let the values that we connect to express themselves through us until, as they say in this, I think Dogen says in this famous poem, you sit, he says, with the mountains. That said, you sit with the value till only the value remain. So you just sort of absorb that, like me, it's like Gunaketu, who am I sitting to this talk? It's not important. It's what I express and what I embody. That's what's important. And this is what, thousands, I hope millions of people do around the world at this very moment. If we sit here and we embody these value of care and trust and compassion in so many different languages, in so many different ways, from so many different religions. And it's all part of the same. And it's this combined remedy that will help change the world. So just being like this is just beautiful. And then taking the moment to just to enjoy it and just, yeah, sit with it. I had wanted to play to you now one of my favorite songs called Gula Gula, but by Maria Boine. But with a recent head up with this mic and headphones, I didn't make that work. So, but anyway, if you wanted to after, I could very much recommend it. It's a beautiful song about this sister and brotherhood, meeting together. So now I invite you to walk the talk, walk this talk. And so I invited some of you, well, I invite you to bring, and I made this sign, faith for climate. And so I invite you to take this with you and your camera or your mobile phone or something and go out into nature somewhere. And it suddenly turned cold here. So, but, or find some aspect of a plant or something and just maybe you want to shovel some snow or clean up, remove some rubbish, and just sit down and take some time and drink in the beauty of that nature. And be there for as long as you want. Just soak it up, enjoy it, connect with it. And when you're finished, just take a selfie and with it was on Faith or other, and then upload it onto the website. And yeah, and then I invite you to meet together at 5 o'clock here at this address maybe to share some of how that was. But before we